Welcome to Fostering Parenthood. This is a space to hear from other foster parents firsthand about how to support your foster youth with their healthy sexual development. I'm Dorothy Daniels, and I've been a mom and a foster mom for over 42 years. Hi, Kat. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Dorothy. Thank you for bringing me here. It's good to see you again.
Well, I am so excited to have you because we're going to be talking about a big question today that a lot of folks ask. What defines a healthy relationship? We have a former foster youth here, Kat McKeon. She's going to be talking about her experience with developing relationships in foster care. Kat McKeon is a mental health support worker, a member of the Youth Advisory Board at the Reproductive Health Equity Project, and she hosts what? A podcast called Self-Taught. Now, Kat, as a host of a podcast to another host of a podcast, I have such an important question for you. What do you do with your hair with these big old headphones that we have to wear?
You're just going to dive into the important stuff like that? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, we're getting into the important stuff.
Well, I think that's been a big lesson that I've been learning along the way with other slightly less important things like, being authentic and things like that. But little stuff.
Yeah.
My hair's just changed in every single episode going out. My hair's all red in the first one, and I hate it. Came out like that on accident, and I never fixed it because I was like, maybe nobody will recognize me if I do a really bad job because I would never have red hair. I don't like it.
I love it. Well, maybe I'll try that, right?
Try and have red.
Different color every episode. Yeah, that'd be great. Well, what do you do on Self-Talk? What is that podcast about?
Self-Taught is a podcast where we interview people who have been kind of affected somehow by the foster care system, and then how that kind of interrelates with their other kinds of identities and how that's affected them growing up. And we hope that it's going to be a chance for other people to hear those stories and feel inspired to support young people's healthy development, whatever role you have in their life. And also for young people to hear those stories and also feel like a sense of comfort and connection in hearing other people's vulnerabilities and the things that they've gone through, and maybe learn something.
Wow, that's really powerful. I know, we can read all we want about life and kind of get that opinion, but until you hear someone's life experience in a way that's more visceral, right? That just really affects who you are, change won't happen. So, congratulations on such an important podcast, and I'm going to listen. So, well, let's get started with kind of what we're tackling today, and that is, can you share with me how you learned the difference between a healthy and an unhealthy relationship?
Well, when I think about my lived experiences and how I've learned, I kind of always come back to this one story that was pretty much my first like real adult love in life. And I'll just tell you the story, and then we'll kind of go back through and dissect about what those learning moments were along the way, because I want you to kind of go with me and learn as I learned, yeah. So in the beginning, I was just in a really like just a super vulnerable place. I was on my way crawling out of basically like the lowest low I had ever been in. I was just trying to do something with myself, and I started dating this guy who had been part of my friend group for a very long time. Like we had known each other, and things started to get romantic, and we had nothing. And slowly together, we grew together. We got better jobs. I started going to school. We got a place to live, and we got a car, all the normal adult functioning members of society things that we never thought we were going to have for ourselves. And I think I kept growing and that he didn't. And I think that sort of created this divide between us, and it made him sort of resentful. And um, I think that slowly started to come out, not resentful. I think it made him really insecure too. And
Mm.
that sort of slowly came out through little actions. Like, I always remember one of these like core memories of us driving. We shared a car, and so we're driving to take me to my English final exam. And he's telling me, that all our friends don't really like you. They're just pretending to like you because they don't want to hurt your feelings. They're just trying to be nice, but this is all the things that they say about you behind your back. And I'm like, okay, please stop, and he's not. He's just helping me because he's telling me, don't you want me to be honest with you? And who would not want that, right? And so eventually it turns into like full blown panic attack. And of course, he's there to comfort me because even though you're so awful and nobody can love you, I love you. And then I think, I'm so lucky that this one person finds a way to love me through all of this, right? So that's just like one microcosm for little things that I look back on and I realize how twisted that really is. So that continued for a while, and then he got really sick. He had like a 1 inch by 1 inch tumor, gastrointestinal, blah blah blah. And so that just became like the justification for his mistreatment and his, I just called it being a jerk. I didn't call it abuse then. And drug use and all of those things just tied together. And then I think along the way, everyone had always been telling me, including my ex, we all knew that I was too good for that. And everybody would tell me that I deserved better, right? But it just didn't do anything to me because I just felt like that was my expression of love, is that even though I deserve better, I'm going to stick around for you. So one day I had a chance to be one on one with a friend of ours, a mutual friend that actually saw firsthand the situation and knew. And I finally said, like, what do you think of all this? Like, I can't make heads from tails. And the friends was like, you know what I think? I I just can't even believe that you could be so stupid to believe all these things. And he laid into me. And
Ouch.
yeah. And I mean, he just really did not hold anything back, letting me know how dumb I was being, but it was what I needed because he wasn't telling me you are too good compared to this person, right? That ex was my foil. He made me look better in comparison. And I think I held on to that because that boosted my self confidence. Whereas this friend had flipped that script and he said, you are lowering your own value by putting up with this and allowing this to happen to you and, not sticking up for yourself. You could be better. So for that, I was totally willing to take a risk. And that was when that night, really just hands down, no argument, I'm done, walked away, and I didn't come back. And yeah, I'm not angry at that friend at all. The only resentment I have over that is that he waited that long to tell me that.
Darn you. Where were you
Yeah.
when I needed you? Yeah.
Yes,
You know,
exactly. Oh, yeah,
so
go ahead.
Kat, what part of being a foster youth yourself do you think allowed that to happen? Or do you feel that that's related?
Um, yeah, I think I've always been sort of like naive and stuff, and probably just a lot of issues with like attachment and not wanting people to leave, so I put up with all those things. Um, oh, plot twist, forgot to mention this. But before I get too far ahead, plot twist, as you would imagine in an abusive relationship, there was a lot of like harassing and stalking and stuff going on. And I don't know, maybe you want to cut this part out later, but one day, and I've just for years have had these little moments of these little epiphanies of like, that's not really how that happened. Like my reality was twisted in that. And sorry to take you off track. I just want to make sure I finish my story
No,
before I
this is
head back.
cool. You've got me on the edge of my seat. Do
Yeah.
it.
So I have these little epiphanies all the time about like, that wasn't even reality, right? That was his reality that he gave me. And I woke up one morning and I was like, he never had cancer. And boom, everything. Yeah. So I didn't tell you sooner.
Stop it. So
Yes.
he didn't
Yeah.
have cancer?
Nope. He faked it. And I was so trusting and naive. And it embarrasses me to this day in a lot of ways, but also in a lot of ways, I don't know. People are like, how could you believe that? And I'm like, because who lies about that? you know? So
Yeah,
that was
don't put this on you, girl. This is not you, okay?
yeah, it was a lot of lessons learned, a ton of them. So
Wow.
yes, that was the thing that I, after so much harassment and everything, I've just messaged him. I know you fake cancer. Leave me alone, or I'm going to tell everybody. And I have not heard from him since. So that worked.
Hmm.
It didn't work to
So,
blackmail him to give me my money back, but that's it was an expensive lesson learned. I'm doing better
ouch,
now.
another ouch. Yeah. Well, I'm glad, but, so I think about, we all get into unhealthy relationships. That's just who we are, right? We're especially those of us that are empathetic, most caregivers like me too, we kind of live a life of trying to help people. And we kind of probably step over those boundaries that we should keep for ourselves, just to keep ourselves healthy, just purely because we want to help. And so I'm wondering, as a foster kiddo, w- when it comes to role models, like how, who you looked at for those positive relationships, did you have anybody?
I was seeing a counselor, a school counselor, about this relationship that I was talking about. I'm like, I just don't know why I can't make it work. Like, he's a really nice guy. And and she, without even questioning that, was like, "Well, do you have any positive role models?" And I thought about it and I was like, "No, not even one. I can't think of one ever." Of relation like healthy romantic relationships. And like she was like, um, it's not a free pass, but now you can give yourself a little bit of grace, and at least you can look for some tools to move forward and help you with that. And so that's something that I've definitely held on to.
I think that's really important. And I think our caregivers need to understand that, right? That a lot of our kids, because they feel not up to par, I mean, just your typical youth feel like they don't fit in, but foster youth so much more. And as caregivers, we watch these kids kind of fumble their way through relationships. And do you think that modeling healthy relationships is maybe something that's a good tool for them, for the kiddos?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think not only is that important, it's also something that is not something that most families would do consciously, right? But
Hmm.
because there's a lacking there, that we need to make an extra effort to acknowledge that that's needed. And I also think that we try to protect young ones no matter what. We try to protect them from seeing conflict with adults. And I think within reason, I don't think we should be protecting them. I think we should be showing them the conflict and the resolution and how we go about fixing those problems, not necessarily keeping it behind closed doors with,
Oh, that's
some
such yeah,
discretion.
such good advice. Even using techniques like mirroring, like, oh, I hear you're feeling, right? Just to kind of check and balance that you're on the same page would be really helpful tools.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So, how do you think trauma, which we know foster kiddos suffered from trauma, and your own trauma, um, might play into some of the behaviors in choosing the relationship, even the relationship that you shared with us?
I think life traumatizes us all, but I do agree that
Fair.
when you
That's
have
fair.
that, yeah. I think when you have that foster kid background, that label, there's a higher probability, I'll say, of some of that big T trauma. And for me, I could go on and on about the different like nuances of all of those things, but for me, what really made me vulnerable in that particular situation is that I have always been exceptionally bad at being alone, and my safety has always been so important to me. And so I overlooked a lot of things that would have been red flags in that relationship because I was in a tough spot where my actual physical safety was at a very high risk. And so I attached myself to somebody I just wanted a guard dog, So I attached myself to somebody who's big and tough and mean, hoping that they would do that stuff for me and put me in a tough spot.
Yeah, kind of traded, right? Traded one bad for another.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
So your happy ending may not be
Yeah.
your final happy ending, but are you in a healthy relationship now?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Best relationship. I couldn't have dreamt it better. Absolutely, just super healthy, and it's been going on. We've been together like a year and a half, going on like 2 years roughly, and so we're not in the honeymoon phase, but just getting better all the time.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. I love happy endings.
Thank
What?
you.
Well, Kat, I want to thank you so much for spending time on fostering parenthood and just sharing with us what healthy relationships we hope to instill in our kids that we care for. By what you've shared with an unhealthy, we know kind of those traps, right, that our kids can get in. And I want to wish you all the luck with your wonderful podcast and all the good that you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much.
Take care.
Yeah, you too.